Welcome everybody to another UFO Man Live. My name is Tim, or UFO Man. Let's go around the panel and introduce everybody. Nos, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Greetings. I'm Nos. I'm here to make sure that we understand our direction to a better future.
Right. William?
What?
Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm William. Nice to meet you.
Or Gorilla Gamer, and this is his first time on.
I'm just. Sorry, Tim. Go ahead. Go ahead, buddy.
This is his first time on the panel, and we're happy to have him here.
Thanks for having me, good sir.
Nancy?
Hi, I'm Nancy Tams. I'm a lifelong contactee with interdimensionals and positive extraterrestrials. And thank you for having me, Tim.
You're more than welcome anytime, Nancy. Odessa?
Hi, Odessa. I'm here to help out with the chat, ask questions, get attention of everybody. We get distracted. Just here to help out and listen and learn.
If you want to ask questions in the chat room, please type them in capital letters so that we can focus on the question and bring it up on screen. That way, Odessa can get it to the panel and we can address it with Debra. Our guest tonight is Debra Jordan Kauble. She is known for the book by Bud Hopkins called The Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods, or Intruders, I think is the actual title, correct?
Yeah, Intruders.
Okay. This is the book. Also, she is known for another book that she recently wrote. I think it was a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. 2020. I think it came out in 2021.
Okay, and that was called Extraordinary Contact: Life Beyond Intruders, and we're going to address both this evening. Debra, thank you very much for coming back on the channel. We really appreciate the fact that you're here.
Well, I appreciate your invitation very much. Thank you. And it's nice to meet everybody and everybody again. And thanks.
Okay, the first question I have for you, Deb, is can you let people know a little bit about yourself? Since some people in the chat may or may not know who you are, and could you let them know a little bit about why you're famous?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me that a lot of people don't know who I am anymore, because it's been years since I had the experience on June 30th, 1983. That is the focus of the book Intruders. That was written by Bud Hopkins. That whole book is about myself, my experience in June, and my family and other experiences we had. And that was that was a New York Times best-selling book, and it was made into a miniseries on CBS in 1992 that starred Richard Crenna and Mare Winningham. And so a lot of people back then were familiar a lot with me more than they are now. There's a whole new generation of people that there's a lot of people that don't even know who Bud Hopkins is. And he was a pioneer, in my opinion, thank you, John. But Bud was a pioneer in abduction research, even back then. I'm a lifelong experiencer. I've had contact with what I think are extraterrestrial, but also I believe that there's an interdimensional part of it. Like I had the main experience that I had that was written about in June 30th, 1983 was when I was living with my parents. I was a single mom in my early 20s. I had 2 little boys. And I was about to go cut out some patterns for a friend of mine who lived behind us to make a little extra money. I was standing at the kitchen sink washing my hands, looking out the window, and I saw an odd light in the pump house of my parents' swimming pool that caught my attention and didn't rub me the right way. It just felt I couldn't put my finger on why it didn't seem right, quite right. But I pointed it out to my mother, and she said, "Don't worry about it." So I went ahead and I left to go to my friend's house. And about the time I got there, the phone rang, and it was my mother asking me to come home. And I thought she sounded scared, which was not like my mom at the time. And I asked her what was wrong. And my friend's husband heard us on the phone, and he said, "Tell her to call the police. That's what we get. That's what they get paid for." And she heard him, and she said, "No, I don't want anybody here but you." And I'm like, okay. So I went home, and I went out and looked around in the yard, and I was concerned about burglars. My dad had a big workshop in the back behind the swimming pool. He had another great big workshop. Then he had Indian motorcycles and little English race cars that he was restoring, so there's a lot of money back there. And I thought of people, not aliens, not by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
So I looked around the swimming pool area. I thought, okay, if there's anybody here, they would be in the garage. The pedestrian door to the garage that was attached to the house was open. And when I had gotten there, I picked up my dad's shotgun out of the Florida room, and I knew it wasn't loaded. And I remember telling my mom, because she says, that's not loaded, right? And I'm like, yeah, I know, but whoever's out there don't know. I can get close enough to them to hit them with it before they realize it. So, and even the fact that went out there was weird, because I wasn't brave. I would do it now in a heartbeat, but in my 20s, no. I still don't know why I went out there, but I did. Looked around, didn't see anything. I did see find my dog under Dad's ladder truck, but she would not come out. So I went into the garage, and while I'm in there looking around, all of a sudden I felt really hot. I got this feeling that swept over my whole body. Like I felt like I was on fire. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I got to get out of here right now. And I turned and I started out to head out that door, the pedestrian door. And I was hit in the chest by a ball of the whitest, brightest, most intense light I'd ever seen in my life. Hit me in the chest. I could not move. I felt like I started vibrating, shaking and then vibrating. I couldn't even scream. I was screaming in my head. But then I remember hearing somebody say it was unfortunate that I felt this pain. And then I noticed in front of me, I vibrating and shaking so much, it felt like every molecule of my body was coming apart one at a time. And I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I couldn't see anything but white, the bright light. And I'm pretty sure my eyes were closed, but I still, all I could see was this white, bright light. And I don't know how long I was in that condition, honestly, because when the bright light finally let go, and started to fade, and the vibrating slowed down and the shaking stopped, I was now out on the cement patio, out of the doorway, out on the cement patio. And I could see, but my vision was splotchy at this point, like flash bulb splotches, but I could see people in the yard, and they looked like kids. And I remember thinking, oh my God, why are there kids in my mom and dad's backyard? And I watched them all come from different areas of the yard, and they all kind of lined up off to my right out by the driveway. And they just kind of slid down, kind of glided down in front of me. And as I was following them with my eyes, because I still can't move. And I remember thinking, oh, my kids, because I thought, oh, my kids are in the house with my mom. And immediately I heard a voice say, your children are fine.
Wow. And
I watched these things move down in front of me. And that's when I saw the craft, for lack of a better word to describe it, the craft. It was like an egg on its bottom up and down, and it wasn't very big. It really wasn't much bigger than the pump house of the swimming pool. As a matter of fact, in retrospect, I don't really think it was a craft, because I don't see how 6 of anybody, there were 6 of these kids in the yard. I don't know how 6 of anybody could go in those things and fly anywhere. So I don't know what it was or what it did. And I also didn't even think that it was all the way on the ground at one point, because it seemed to kind of wobble a little bit. And there was a white ball of light about as high as I am tall off the ground. I was 5'3", 5'2", and it was probably about 20 or 25 feet in front of me. And then I saw it. I lost track of where the kids went. I don't remember seeing them go into this thing or where they went. I saw that white light, and it went down real slow, and it came back up real slow. And I distinctly felt that it was looking at me, and I don't know why. And I also did not want to look at this thing in the yard, but I did not want to look at it because I needed to know where it was and if it was coming close to me, that terror, that kind of terror.
Yeah.
And so then the next thing I remember is hearing my name. But this time when I heard my name, it was like someone snapped their fingers, and I woke up out of this weird alternate reality, or this weird haze, or whatever was happening. It's like I woke up and everything was gone. Everything was normal. I could move. I turned and walked towards where I heard my name, and it was my mom. She was standing on the top porch, kind of in the kitchen door open, kind of stuck her head out, calling my name. And she said, "Is everything okay?" And I said, "Yeah, everything's cool." But in my head, I'm thinking, I don't want to go swim anymore. I mean, I don't want to go sew anymore. I need to get wet. I just feel weird. And so I called my friend, and I'm like, "You guys want to come over and go swimming instead of sewing?" I mean, it was almost July, and the pool was open, and it was a warm night. And so she's like, "Yeah." So I can't remember at this point. I cannot remember whether I went back to her house and they came back with me, or they just came over. The missing time, Bud figured out later that from the point where I left my friend's house until I contacted her to come back was about an hour and a half, maybe, or an hour and 15 minutes. And all I remember of that time is this little bit, that I was telling you about now.
Right.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
So anyway, her daughter and her came over, and we would walk across the yard. As the daughter walks across the yard, she steps on something in the yard, and she says her foot, first she said it tingled, and then it was going numb. And we thought maybe she'd stepped on a bee, like a bee sting. So we got to the pool, and her mom's like, "Well, we didn't see anything." She's like, "Go ahead and get in the pool. The cold water will make it feel better if you did step on a bee and the stinger just fell out, So we're in the pool for 10, 15 minutes. And all of a sudden, all three of us start feeling sick, nauseous, and my eyes start burning real bad. And I'm starting to see white halos around everything. So they go home, and I go in the house. And remember, at this point now, I don't remember the light or the kids or the egg-shaped thing at this point.
Right.
I just know something's wrong, and I don't feel right. And I go home, I go in and go to bed. The next morning, I woke up, my eyes were swelled completely shut, and I was in excruciating pain so much. My mother took me to the emergency room, and just so happened, go figure, I don't know how, why this happened, but when we went to the emergency room, there was an actual eye doctor in the emergency room. The medical doctor. They don't typically hang around emergency rooms, I don't think, but he was there. He looked at me, and he asked my mom if she could take me across the street to his office, because he was better equipped to examine me there. And so she did, and we did. And the first thing he asked me was, "Have you looked into the arc of a welder's torch? Have you looked into the sun?" I'm like, "No." And I'm thinking to myself, why would you ask me something so dumb? And remember, I didn't tell you anything about the light because I didn't remember it. I didn't remember it until later on the next day. The family came over that weekend. Well, my eyes never were right after that. And I want to say real quickly, when I was in my 30s, I was diagnosed with macular degeneration and cataracts, and I had cataract. My eye lenses are acrylic now. They had to be replaced because they were wrecked. My eyes were never right after that night. Once they healed, I went farsighted like mad, like a 3.0 in my 20s, you know. Never wore glasses before. My eyes have never been right since.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
I gotta mention something about that, about your eyes.
yeah.
My last co-host said that he's had nothing but trouble with his eyes
Mhm.
ever since he saw the lights of the craft that he saw when they hit him in the face. A lot of people report eye injury after a close-up sighting.
I
So
will-
you're not alone.
I know, and I will forever and ever blame that light because it was so intense and my vision was so wrecked afterwards. But I can't prove it. I can't prove anything. So,
Right.
but anyway, the family came over a day or two later. The kids ran out to go swim, and we were getting ready for a barbecue for 4th of July. And my oldest nephew run back in the house, and he said, "Grandma, what's wrong with your yard?" And she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he said, "Come and look." So the whole family ran out there. If you can imagine, it's like the Who in Whoville all standing around the tree at Christmas Day, Christmas morning, right? We're all standing around this mark in the yard. It's a 8-foot diameter circle with a 49-foot swath that exactly 2 feet wide and ends in a perfect arc that went all the way across the yard and almost touched the driveway and ran right across the swimming in front of the pool between the back patio and the swimming pool. And then and then there was the circle, and it had a big crack on one side that I accidentally dropped a measuring stick down and trying to measure how deep the crack would go. And I dropped the stick and never found it. But so anyway, my mother, she looks at the mark in the yard and then she kind of laughs and she goes, "Oh, that's where the UFO landed the other night." And you know, she's kind of giggling and I'm looking at her like, what? And I didn't think it was funny. It hit me wrong. And then I looked back at the mark in the yard, and then I started to remember that night. I remembered the light. In the course of the day, all kinds of memories came back. And by, a couple of days later, I was in full-blown panic attack mode and not sleeping, sitting up all night. I got scared to look into, I got scared to go to the bathroom upstairs at night because that window overlooked the mark in the yard. And I kept thinking someone's going to pull me through that window. And I mean, how crazy is that? That is absolutely insane. I really feel at that point I had a nervous breakdown, for real. Thank God for my parents, because I had 2 little kids. And I started remembering all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff started coming back. Things that happened to me when I was younger, when I was a teenager, things that happened to me when I was 6 years old and I went missing for an entire day in Detroit. And the police were called to find me. And my older sister, who also had an experience in 1965 in her car behind the church, 10th and Franklin Road in Indianapolis, behind the Holy Spirit Church, giant UFO, she always claimed, came over her car and picked her whole car up with her in it.
Wow.
And that was in 1965, so my family always had stuff happen. But, eventually I started remembering all this stuff. And I had picked up a book called Missing Time at the library a few months before. It was written by Bud Hopkins. And it really attracted my attention because it was an orange book with big black letters in it. And I thought, I started trying to read the book and I began realizing what it was about. And I started having panic attacks. And I went to the emergency room at least twice trying to read this book, thinking I was having a heart attack. And it was anxiety. It was a panic attack. So to the point where my mom said, you got to take that book back to the library because we can't afford to keep going to the emergency room. So, but I did remember that in the back of that book, there was an address where you could write to the guy who wrote the book if you thought you had one of these experiences. Well, first thing in my mind was my sister, because she actually said she was picked up by a UFO, you know.
Right.
But I kept looking at the mark in the yard and thinking about things that these little flashes of memory that I had, these little weird things that made no sense. So I wrote this 14-page letter to Bud, and I took 14 Polaroids of the backyard. I started the letter out with my sister's story. So I kind of threw her under the bus. She was a little mad at me about it for a while, but she got over it. I gave the letter to my mom to mail. My mom's like, well, she carried it around in her purse for a couple of weeks and she didn't know whether she wanted to mail it or not. She wasn't sure she really wanted it. She told Bud later, did I really want to go down this path? You know?
Right.
But she said, something overcame her. She was at the mailbox mailing bills one day and she just dropped it in. I don't know, it was maybe a month or two, a couple months later, the phone rang one night. I was out with friends and he called. And when I got home, my mom says that guy who wrote that book called. And as soon as she said that, it was like, oh, my heart started pounding and racing. And, you know, back then we didn't have cell phones or the internet or anything like that. It was a long distance call. It costed money. And she said, you can call him back if you want. It was their phone. I had to get, permission to rack up a long distance call.
Right.
And so I called him and man, I remember my heart beating in my throat when I dialed that phone number. And as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, okay, here we go, and from that point on, I sold my washer and dryer I had in storage. I had a portable washer and dryer stacking unit, and I sold it to get enough money for a bus ticket to go to New York and see him. And about halfway there on the trip, I just about jumped off the bus and went home because I started thinking, what the hell are you doing? You're a mother with 2 kids. You're a single mom. You can't go crazy. You're going to see a guy who wrote a book about aliens and UFOs and stuff. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right.
He could be, and I thought to myself, he could be an axe murderer. I told him that later. And the funny thing is, when I got off the bus, as soon as I saw him, I felt relief. But guess what? The first place he took me right out of Grand Central Station was the psychiatrist's office. He took me to see Dr. Clamar. Aphrodite Clamar was her name. He took me to see her and we talked. She was very nice. She even did a little light hypnosis on me because I'd never been hypnotized before. And it was just to show me what it felt like. And it was nothing like I had imagined. And I also think she was assessing me to make sure I wasn't an axe murderer going to stay at Bud's house. You know what I mean? So, but then, that started the whole, I guess it was probably a couple, 2 or 3 years of him and he kept coming when he could to Indiana. He interviewed my boss, my friends, my family, our neighbors. He went knocking on doors and he took soil samples that he sent off to the lab. And, I went to, at one time I went to New York and he had set up 6-hour psychological written and verbal testing for me at the hospital in New York. He had set up an EEG where they put the little wires on your head to see if I had epilepsy or something like that was causing this. I also had like a CAT scan of my head, and I didn't pay for this. And I don't think he paid for it either. Somebody donated the money to him to do it, or else donated the resources to do it. Because he was trying to rule out brain tumors, any kind of mental illness. I always say now, I'm not crazy. They tested me.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I remember telling the therapist or the psychologist that was testing me, I said, it's okay if you tell me I'm crazy, because I know they make pills for that, and I'd be happy to take them if this
Right.
would go
You think
away.
it's good at this. Totally.
Yeah. And Bud said the only thing they just diagnosed me with, they said I was above average intelligence, and this was before I was in Mensa,
Mensa.
so I didn't
Go
know.
Mensa.
Yeah. And that I wasn't like I wasn't delusional. I wasn't fantasy prone. They did diagnose me with PTSD. And one of Bud's points was, you got to have something happen to you to have PTSD. And I didn't have any that kind of a life that would have caused something that dramatic. So I still struggle with anxiety today, even. And I've had EMDR therapy for PTSD, which has been brilliant and helped a lot. I wish I'd have had it 40 years ago. Would have saved me a lot of heartache. But, so he came to the family and he says, look, this is big. And we've got the mark in the yard, we've got the doctor, reports, and we had 2 independent witnesses to that night. And he's like, I want to write a book about this. I think the world needs to know about this, what this is happening, along with other things that happened after that night and things that happened to me before that night. Right. And it was a family decision. And first my family and I were like, I don't think so. That wasn't the point of this. I just wanted my life back. I just wanted to be normal, somebody help me. But eventually he convinced us that it would be helpful for other people and that he would promise to protect us by using pseudonyms for everyone, even for the place. Copley Woods is not really a place in Indianapolis.
Right.
Because by the time he started the investigation, we had people coming, showing up in the backyard, taking pictures of the backyard. Somebody came back with a briefcase and took something out of the mark one time. We weren't even home. The neighbors told us they saw him. So it's like, if this is happening before there's even a book, what's going to happen to us after that? You know. And then in the meantime, I'd had this weird pregnancy when I was engaged to my first husband. And I found out I was pregnant. I was 17, and you don't tell my dad you're pregnant. This was a different time and a different era. It wasn't like it is now. So my mom took me to the doctor, and I had a pregnancy test that was positive and a pelvic exam that was positive. Matter of fact, the doctor thought I was maybe even farther along than I thought I was. So I was engaged, and we were going to get married in June. I turned 18 in February. But we moved it up to April because, again, different time. It wasn't cool. My parents weren't going to have me walking down the aisle all big and pregnant, And then I babysat for my sister one night, and I woke up the next morning in a different place, had these weird dreams, these weird images in my head, and something was wrong with my baby. Went back to the doctor, and I was no longer pregnant. Another pregnancy test was negative, another pelvic exam. And he took mom and me into his office, and he said, look, we see this from time to time. You're young. You'll have other children. There's nothing wrong with you. My mom says, does she need a DNC? And he's like, no. And he said, my advice to you is to forget this ever happened. And this was in the 70s. And so, and I thought to myself, dude, I'm never forgetting this. As long as I live.
Yeah.
There was no sign of you ever being pregnant in the first place, right?
No. I didn't need a DNC. Everything looked completely normal. And, right. I put that away in the shelf in my head for years. It was never talked about again in the family. Charlie and I went ahead and got married. We ended up having 2 more kids right away. Right. I know.
And a DNC is what you get to check the mental state or the brain functioning of
No,
a child?
the
that-
a
No?
DNC
No, no?
is it's
Oh, okay.
dilation and curettage or whatever. They go in and they scrape your
Curettage.
uterus
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. The
to
comfortable
make sure,
part. Okay.
yeah, to make sure that
No.
everything came out and you don't bleed out and die.
I remember that word. But I've had 3 kids, so I
Yeah, but you didn't have them.
no, I didn't have it. I mean,
Just-
obviously, sorry.
I'm just being silly. I'm sorry.
I know.
Yeah, but yeah, he said just forget it ever happened, and you'll have other kids. And I'm like, well, I'm never forgetting this. But we never talked about it again in the family. Charlie and I went in, like I said, got married, had 2 more kids, and it was never spoken about again. It was always in my head. I always remembered and thought about it on certain days, dates, and whatnot. And why in the hell I would even begin to think that there was any connection between all this other weird stuff and that, I don't know. But
Just
at
felt
one
connected.
point, when I was looking at the mark in the yard, I couldn't stop thinking about it. After all these years, of these years of years of this happening, and I'm going back to thinking about it again. And so I said to Bud one time he came out to the house, I said to him, I lost a baby. And then I started crying because I thought, oh God, I feel so stupid now. He probably thinks I'm crazy. That's why I was crying. I was embarrassed that I had blurted it out. And I could tell because the way he looked at me was like, oh, I'm so sorry. But it's like, okay. And, why are you telling me this? And I was, I'm like, why did you even say anything? So I said, I don't know why I said this to you. I don't know why I told you, but I don't know why you need to know this, but I'm just felt like I had to tell you this. And he like, okay. So and then I found out he'd been getting letters from other women who'd had been pregnant and lost the baby disappeared. Now, I've only got that one that I know of. I had a dream about seeing another baby, but I don't know where I was or how that came about. I was, this is just the one time. And then I had a strange dream about, a few years later, a dream memory. I called it a dream because I got to live with it, of actually seeing her. It was a female with them, which was the little gray guys. And so that all got put in Intruders too, because other women were having this experience too. And I did not want it in the book. Once we finally agreed to have the book, I'm like, I really don't want that part in there. This is too personal, too private. I mean, at the end of the day, I lost a baby that I was starting to love. And I don't want to talk about it. It was embarrassing. Yeah. It was hurting. And it was also embarrassing because I couldn't believe that there would be any connection because it's too crazy. So, but he convinced me. He convinced me that there were thousands of women out there who needed to hear what I was going to tell them and to know they weren't alone, and I would help a lot of people. And at the end of the day, that's all I really wanted to do with Intruders. Right. That's what awesome. I wanted to do with the book that I wrote later, the right. one I wrote with Kathy, which is called Abducted. And then this one I've written. Right. All I want is to pay forward because I'm fortunate. I had witnesses to almost everything that happened to me. I was supported by my employer, my friends, my neighbors, my family. Yeah. And that was rare. Yes. Most people didn't get that. I got that, and I was blessed. I felt blessed, and I wanted to pay it forward and give out. I felt there has to be a reason why. Maybe I'm supposed to help other people. So, Intruders happened, and then my books happened, and here I am. So that's how I got here. Sorry, it's a long story. It's kind of hard to.
It's beautiful.
That's right. I do have a question in regards to the scene, not with Mayor Winningham, who portrayed you, but the other lady with the long blonde hair in Intruders. She's the one that claimed she had a baby taken. So did Tracy Torme shift it from you to that girl kind of to protect you?
I don't know. The way it was told to me, because I mean, I didn't have anything in it. I mean, it was the transaction was between Bud and Tracy, and it was for like an 18-month period of time. He could had an 18-month hold on it. He could do what he wanted, or 15 months, something like that. And I don't know why. I know in Travis's case, Tracy did Travis's Fire in the Sky too, and it was a mess, I guess, in some parts, which was upsetting for Tracy and I mean for Travis. And so you know, I think the same thing happened to the Intruders on a smaller scale. It appears what they did was that they took elements of our book, of my case and of me, and they took elements of other people's stories. They're all actual things that happened, but not necessarily to me. And they created these different characters. For instance, the Richard Crenna character, he was supposed to be a cross between John Mack and Bud Hopkins. He was supposed to be like a blend of those two guys. So I don't know what the idea was with her, you know, this woman having the sister. Obviously I had a sister involved in some stuff with me when I was younger, but at my older sister and her experiences, but you know, so I don't know if that just, you know, represented the two sisters. I don't know what the thinking was behind it. I was actually in the beginning, I was not happy.
Right.
And I told Tracy I wasn't happy about it because it's got intruders on it. And I'm going places with Bud and I'm talking about my experience to people. And then I got people coming up to me afterwards going, oh, I saw the miniseries and remember when this happened to you and this happened to you. And I'm like, that did not happen to me. And I felt horrible. It broke my heart in some cases to tell people that didn't happen to me. So I can't help you there, you know? It was annoying to me and I felt bad for everybody. And I felt like it wasn't a true story.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not like that. And I told Tracy that, and he's like, well, you know, Hollywood, you have to do certain things. The studio's going to pay for it. It's their money and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I think Tracy.
So they took a lot of creative license.
Exactly. And I think that's what they did with Travis's story as well. But anyway, in the end, in retrospect now, I look back on it and I think, you know, I'm actually proud of it. I'm glad that he did it, even though it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I really would love for my actual story and my life, my family to be out there because it's a hoot. But it was one of the first things that was on mainstream media television back in the early 90s that didn't treat it like a joke, didn't have a laugh track or some corny porn music playing in the background. It treated the characters with respect, and it brought the experience to mainstream people that would have never known about it and never realized they weren't alone. I mean, because I'm telling you, for everybody out there like me or the other folks out here talk about their experiences publicly, for every one of us, I will guarantee you there's 50,000 people on this planet that have probably crazier stories to tell than I have, that I ain't never going to say a word to nobody.
Yeah, they don't have as many witnesses and the support. Of course, they're not going to say anything.
So, you know? Yeah. So I'm like, you know, I'm glad he did it. It was one of the first things out there back in the day that treated the subject respectfully. And he did. They didn't make a bunch of crap up. I mean, they took things from actual cases. So, you know, these were actually things that happened, not necessarily to me, but so in the end, I'm happy about it, and I'm proud that it happened.
Before we go to the panel for questions, we do have a question from the chat room from John P. Adventures. Has Debra developed any medium ability?
Yes. And the older I get, the better it gets. And the more I trust and use it, the better it gets.
That's how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, Nos, you got a take on all this?
Well, one of the things I wanted to mention was that, I understand what you're talking about with regard to them changing the narrative for the presentation to the public.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's one of those things I've seen a lot of writers go through the same thing, where you watch the interviews afterwards and stuff like that. And it's in large part that American audiences in particular have been so conditioned for the way that a story is supposed to flow that they can't just handle a telling of reality, right? It has to be restructured into something that follows the line of expectations for how information is supposed to unfold and everything. But where I saw the greatest value of the movie that came in is it really showed the struggle that the experiencers have to go through to gain traction with anyone that doesn't know. Because unless you're part of the experience, getting over that mental barrier of even saying there's a possibility there might be something there is a huge hurdle. And they covered that really well, in the show, that it just happened to be the convergence of information from this resource and this resource matching up that makes them take a step back and go, there's something here. I need to start looking deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And that convergence opportunity just doesn't happen in most circumstances.
Mm-mm. No, I've been fortunate so many times.
Definitely.
Will,
I know.
what's your take on this?
What's my take?
Your take,
Well,
your perspective.
what's my perspective? All right. When was the last time you've seen the movie,
Me?
Debra? Yeah.
Oh my
Just
goodness.
out of curiosity.
Years.
It's been years? Okay.
It's been years. It's been a very, very long time. For a long time, you couldn't get it on DVD either. I mean, it was only VHS tape for forever and ever.
Right.
I
That's
finally got it on DVD a few years ago, and I still haven't looked at it. Well, I lived some of it, and the rest of it I already knew about. And honestly, there's very few things that trigger me anymore. But in your intro, the one picture you have where the baby's in the crib and the thing's face is right there.
Right.
When that came up, I'm like, oh, hell no. So,
Which
I
picture
have
was that?
I have a few of those moments.
Sorry.
No. I'm good.
Go ahead, William.
No.
Okay, Nancy.
Well, my question is, did you ever reach a point where you felt like it was a spiritual awakening or spiritual experience, and that you could look back and see maybe the fears were from not understanding, or did you ever find peace and feel like there was some meaning to it?
I never felt that anything that I had happened to me, even when I was younger, I never felt any of it was malevolent. I never felt any of it was intended to harm me in any way. There were a couple of experiences where I felt like maybe it was indifferent, but never intentional harm. And yes, as I got older and reflected back on those experiences and had some like growth within myself, I realized that there was a bigger reason for this. And like I often said, June 30, 83, Debbie 2.0 arrived. Like some part of me died that night, but a switch was flipped. Something changed in my brain. I don't know if I grew a new circuit or one that was already there was turned on, or something happened. I started over a period of time having more lucid dreams and more dreams, and I called learning dreams.
Yeah.
Like one particular that I had, I was sitting in the backyard watching the kids play, and I had a wiffle ball bat in my hand, and something was buzzing around my head, and I thought it was a bee, and I don't like getting stung by bees. So I picked the wiffle ball bat up and I swatted at it, and I hit it. But when it fell to the ground at my feet, it wasn't a bee, it was a hummingbird.
Oh, wow.
And I was devastated, and my soul was broken when I realized what I had done. And I picked it up and I cuddled it. This was a quick lucid dream at the end of my sleep cycle, but it felt like a whole year, right? And it was alive, and I nursed it back to health, and it flew around my head, and it sat on my shoulder, and then eventually it flew away. And when it finally flew away and went back to its world, this booming voice says to me, "What did you learn?"
Yeah.
And I thought, what did I learn? I learned not to lash out before I know what I'm lashing out at. I've learned to not react, but respond. You know?
Lesson.
So yeah, that kind of stuff started happening to me a lot.
That's a big part of, I think, everybody experiences when you're
Mhm.
either whatever regard you are. It's a beautiful experience.
It has been. And I told Bud when Bud knew about this aspect before he passed away. He was more on the nuts and bolts kind of, scary, bad stuff thing. But he was very patient with me, and we would have conversations. But I'm like, this is happening to me. This has got to be happening to other people. You got to be hearing it. And he was aware of it, but he didn't really quite know what to do with it.
Yeah.
He was already trying to present things to the general population that were going to be difficult enough to accept on its own merit without adding all of those extra layers to it, And I continued to grow, and I continued to do this, and I continued to write it down.
Thank you for doing that. It takes a lot of courage.
Absolutely.
Takes a lot of courage.
We do have a question for you.
Mhm.
Let's see if I can find it again. Okay, from Live Light, she says, what message does Debra hope reaches humanity, and what does she see for our future?
Well, as far as the future goes, to me, the future is fluid. It can go a lot of different ways, and that just depends on us.
Yeah.
I've learned that I want people to realize that, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are going to be like, "This so woo," but it is what it is. This is how I feel. You ask me. We are all a part of the same thing. We're all connected, and not just humans, everything that's alive.
That's right.
And animals, plants, other life forms everywhere else. We're all connected. We're all the same thing. We are. And when we are magnificent, powerful beings, and we are capable of some astounding stuff with our minds,
Yes.
I feel like all we have to do is believe. And every religion says all you got to do is believe. All you got to do is have faith. Okay. All you got to do is have faith in the fact that you are the creator of your universe. You know what I mean? Your thoughts are powerful, and they can, my biggest lesson in life right now is trying to control my negative thoughts, because I'm a human being.
Yeah.
And I have negative thoughts. And the older I get, the crankier I get.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry for your affliction.
Right.
but it's like, I want people to understand that everything that you see in this world began with a thought, with someone's thought, someone's idea, right? And we're all a part of the same energetic body.
Yeah.
And love is all there is. I mean, the Beatles got it right in
They
1965.
did.
That is the highest and the ultimate. When I was a child, this is how, I've had strange things happen to me my whole life. I had a dream when I was a child that I was I was wherever I was. It was all darkness, but in front of me, there was this intense, bright, white, golden light, right? And all of a sudden it exploded in front of me silently and beautifully into an infinite number of shards of this sparkly golden light, right? And someone said to me, that's you. That little shard goes into everything alive. And then when it's done, like when I die, like I said earlier, I was dead before I got here and I was perfectly fine with it. When I die, I'm sure I'll be perfectly fine with it again.
I love that.
Like the getting there is the part I'm not looking forward to, right? Nobody likes pain, but I feel like I'll take with me this experience that I've had here and share it with everyone, everywhere, and we'll all grow.
Yep.
So anyway, I mean, that's way woo and has real farly removed from UFO sighting, right? But that's where I went.
We do want to know your opinion, though. We want to know if, with your platform, and it's maybe not the world's biggest platform, but you have a platform because of your experiences. What do you want to get out there? I think that's great.
I just want people to be conscious of their thoughts, conscious of their emotions, and of each other, because it's important. We're going to be treated the way we treat others because we are that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just, I look at the human brain as we're tube type radios in a Dolby Digital surround sound room, right? We are only wired to receive certain things. Like I'm sitting in this room right now and I'm being bombarded, and there are Wi-Fi signals and radio signals and TV signals and God only knows what else going through this room by the dozens. But my brain can't receive it, so I don't perceive it. My TV can pick up a television signal, though, because it's made for that.
Right.
The brain's only made for certain things. I believe there's a whole world going on around us right now that we can't perceive, but it doesn't mean it isn't there. Just like it doesn't mean the TV signal's not there just because I can't, do it. So, and whatever is around us, I think some of it is aware of us, and they are aware that we are not aware.
Exactly.
and I think they're trying to help us. And that's why I really think that a lot of the experiences I've had have not been so much extraterrestrial. Now, they may come from another planet, but I don't think they flew here on a ship. They came here in another way. And it's part of that.
There are other ways.
Different layer of dimension. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's dimensional.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I sleep and I have these vivid, weird, lucid dreams, I feel like my body goes to sleep, but I go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like there's been a couple of dreams I've had where, and I could be completely insane. I don't know.
No.
But there's been a couple of dreams I've had where I woke up in my house, but my house was slightly different. Some of the decor was different. Some of the window placing was a little different. I walked out in one dream, my husband's sitting on the chair with my dogs, but all of my stuff I like is gone, and it's a whole different decor. And I walked out in the living room, and I'm like, where's all my stuff? He said, what are you talking about? And I said, where am I? And bam, the minute I said that, I woke up. So I don't know where I go when I sleep. I love that Billie Eilish song. Then the line in that song says, where do we go when we sleep?
Yeah.
That really stood out to me. So, like I'm 64, almost 65 years old. Maybe I've just lost my mind. I don't know, but I'm harmless. And I just want everyone to be
like a steel trap.
Happy.
Come on.
And,
Yeah. So I have a quick question.
All right.
Is that okay,
Go
Tim?
ahead.
Really quick?
Yeah.
All right. So with regard to the movie specifically, if there was one thing you could correct, if there was just one piece of that movie, you'd be like, no, this is not it. What would that one thing be? Because I know there's a lot of things that were not accurate to your story. I know there's a blend of other people's stories mixed in there. But if there was one thing you would want to correct that you're like, no, that is not what happened, what would it be?
I would have liked to seen the night of June 30th, the whole point of Intruders. I would have liked to have seen that night accurately portrayed.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that.
I would have. That's probably would have been.
So can we get that in your book?
Yeah.
All right, that's what I wanted to know. That's what everybody wants to know. We want to know the truth, and if it's in the book, we need to get the book.
This
There we
is
go.
her book.
Yep.
Extraordinary
And the
Contest.
woo stuff is in there too. The progression is in there.
I
as
like
well.
woo woo. I'm a fan of woo woo. Lots of people are.
Yeah, and it's available on Amazon, so go and check it out. Get
Absolutely.
your copy.
Oh yeah, you can get it in
Absolutely.
other bookstores if you're not an Amazon fan. And some people aren't. You can also get it at Barnes and Noble and Books A Million online booksellers. It's a print on demand, so any books online bookseller you'll be able to get it.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's
I
cool.
appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
And I do have a
William.
website too. I've had for like 25 years. If
Yeah, we
anybody
have that
wants
in the
to-
chat. For anybody
Yeah.
rewatching, just scroll back up in the chat. It was at least a half hour ago, but scroll back up. We do have a link to your website in the chat. So
Yeah,
you can-
debshome.com.
You can. I mean, it's old. Oh God, I've had it for 20 some
All
years.
right.
But you can
Hey,
write to me
that's
through
effective.
there. Yeah, it serves the purpose. It's not fancy or pretty, but it works. And you can write to me through there. So if you have something that you want to share with me, please do. I try to answer everybody's emails, and I don't usually have any answers, but I'm a good listener, and I can tell you you're not alone. And whatever you share with me is just between us. What happens at Deb's
There you
home
go.
stays in Deb's home, unless you want me to do something. So
Thanks to Tim Mothman for putting up the link.
thank you.
very
yeah,
much.
thank you. Definitely.
Let's go down the panel again and ask some questions. If you have any last questions you'd like to ask her, go ahead. Let's start with William.
Oh, me again. All right. Let's see. Whenever the big light came out of your chest, was there any pain involved with that? I mean, was it more of like I think you compared it to like lightning, but
It burned.
so it burned more than like a shock or anything. It was more burned.
I felt like I was on fire. My skin felt like it was on fire. And the shaking started to intensify into a vibration to the point where it almost felt like I could feel each individual molecule of my body vibrate differently. It was very intense. And I don't have any idea how long I was in that state or what happened.
But you remember
I remember thinking,
and yelling. And
I didn't yell. I couldn't open my mouth.
No,
but
just in your
my
head.
I
Yeah.
remember thinking, oh my God, I'm dead.
Did you feel like you're going to explode and fly apart?
I just felt like I was vibrating at a very high speed, but not in sync. Like we are all molecules vibrating, and then we're all
Right.
together.
Yeah, but if your
my-
molecules vibrate differently, that
My
creates friction.
sync was off.
Heat.
Yeah, my
And if-
sync was off, and I was on fire. Felt like I was
Makes
on, like a
sense.
hot
Yeah.
flash and fire, hot.
And if you've ever held anything that was vibrating really fast, it kind of mimics electricity current. It feels very similar
Yeah.
to that. Yeah,
I've never
so-
been hit by lightning, but if I were to imagine what it felt like, I would
Yeah.
think that it kind of felt like that, in my head. But I don't know for sure. Thank you, Jesus. I don't want to find
Right.
out.
Let there be light.
Or whoever's in charge. I don't really need to know.
Yeah. Okay, Nancy.
Okay. I'm curious. Do you remember the Grays? You said there were 5. Do you recall like maybe how, and you said they were like children, so I'm guessing about 3 foot tall. Were they wearing like any clothes or robes or anything? And were they the color gray or were they a different color?
Well, back in the yard that night, it was very difficult to see a lot of detail. My eyes were pretty blown out, but I could see movement. I could see what I thought were children. I didn't see, I described them, I think once to Bud, as like bullet shaped, as in the heads were big and then they kind of tapered down. As far as that particular incident goes, I can't really say for sure. I do recall that an incident when I was a newly young married girl, and the 2 of them came in my room with a black box, and they were wearing all black suit, and everybody made fun of me because I drew them and it looked like a turtleneck. And it's like, how did they get that turtleneck over that big head? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't watch them get dressed. I don't have any idea. I don't even know if it is clothing. That could be their body. I don't know. I'm just drawing what I saw or what I remember.
Yeah.
But it
Right.
was all black, and then their heads were big and their skin was a pale gray, like a pasty gray. It wasn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anybody knows aliens wear turtlenecks?
Well,
Everybody
mine-
knows.
Come on.
I know.
This.
I
Yeah.
caught so much stink for that. And I'm like, I'm just drawing what I remember. I don't know what it was or, anything.
Right.
A lot of people have actually painted or drawn the Grays in black suits. So that is common.
Yeah.
I've also seen them in blue.
Yeah, I've seen people draw them in blue.
Or just totally not clothed at all.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Odessa?
Okay, this is going to be ridiculous. So really quickly, it's completely off topic.
Have you met
Can
me?
you make Debra bigger? Can you make her bigger? I just want to
Yes.
say something. All right. Y'all, look at her. What do you use on your skin? She's almost 65 years old.
I know.
What do you do?
She is very
You
attractive.
look amazing. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank
I
you.
can't help it. I'm one of those aesthetic kind of people, and I can't help but notice you look amazing.
I have always used oatmeal soap and water.
There you go.
I drink water. I try not to sleep on my face.
Right.
And when I was younger, I used Noxzema because everybody did,
Yeah.
but
Right.
basically just oatmeal
I
soap
know it's
and
a
water.
stupid question. I'm so sorry, but I had to ask. Like
Oh,
if I was
that's
given a
very
chance, I
sweet.
said, if you ask me again, I'm going to ask that, even though it's completely off topic.
And I just wears like some, dime store moisturizer, just moisturizer.
Well, you
I don't
look
wear,
amazing.
I don't wear face makeup. I don't wear
Yeah.
lip foundation or blush or anything like that. I just use moisturizer.
Yeah. Well, you look amazing. So thank you.
Well, thank you. That's so sweet. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I wasn't the only one wondering. Liv had the same question. It's not just me. So I know it's completely off topic, but I just had to know. Thanks.
Aw, you're welcome. That's very
Hudson
sweet.
Long Grass says alien abductions reduce wrinkles.
Good to know. I need to be abducted. Let's get this on. I got some.
And, I've lost about
Pushing
80 or
50.
90 pounds. I've always was heavier my younger life. And so, and
Yeah.
I've lost probably 90 pounds.
Congrats.
And I always said fat was a preservative.
Oh, it
So
is.
I stayed younger,
Stayed young.
Yeah.
longer because I was fat.
Well, old.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Okay, no.
Yeah, I know. I'm ridiculous.
Yes. So I want to go back to, when you first saw that light in the pump house. Right?
Mhm.
It generated a feeling in you that was unfamiliar, and that unfamiliarity created discomfort at
Yeah.
the time. But my question is, now that you've had more of the paranormal experiences and the things that are more energy based, outside the lines, that kind of thing, reflecting back from that pump house moment, have you had that same occurrence of the feeling generated from an event?
Yes. Over the years, small little things will trigger that. And it was just an uneasy feeling that something wasn't quite right about that light.
Mhm.
And because I was the one that took care of the swimming pool. So I would go out there, struggle with that rusty lock, do the chemicals, you know, sweep up the leaves and all that stuff. And I knew I'd been out there earlier and I had turned the light on, of course, and then turned it off and shut the lock. So the fact the door was open and the light was on, but the light, I realized later that what really kind of flipped my switch, it got me uneasy, was that wasn't the right color light.
Mhm.
You know, there was a regular old incandescent light bulb in that little pump house. You know, it's kind of a yellow
Right.
light. This
Yeah.
light was brighter and whiter, but I couldn't put my finger on it at the time as to why it weirded me out a little bit. That was why. And yes, I have had that happen to me, you know, later in life, odd little things. And it's like, something's not right about this, but I'm not quite sure what it is, you know?
Yeah.
We do have a question from Snoops in 100 in the chat room. When you had your CAT scan, did they inject dye to highlight the brain? That's what they used to do with me with CAT scans.
Yeah, they did. I had to sign a paper. I remember having to sign a release form because they were going to put this dye in me in case I had some kind of a reaction to it.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you have to pee, or it gives
Yeah.
you a warm feeling. You get
Yeah,
real
and your
warm.
mouth tastes like garlic real bad for about
Yes.
30 seconds. Ugh. I
Yeah,
hate
it's
that.
pretty bad.
I've had multitudes of CAT scans here recently because of some health problems I'm dealing with. So I'm very familiar with that.
I don't like the CAT scan table you sit on, you lay on. If it's curved, it hurts your back.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, any last thoughts from anyone?
Just thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for having me. And I want to tell everybody that my buddy Greg and I have resurrected our Midwest Paratalk Radio. We live
good.
stream on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. on YouTube.
It's really good. It's
We're-
really good.
Well,
I
we're trying
enjoy
to.
it.
We're kind of easygoing, and sometimes we have a guest, and I've been dealing with, like I said, health problems, so I've been slacking on trying to get guests. You know, trying to get better. But we've had a few good guests, really good guests, and then sometimes when we don't, Greg and I just kind of banter back and forth, talk about whatever's in the headlines, you know, UFO or paranormal wise, or stuff we've experienced. So
Can you repeat the name of your podcast for our chat audience?
it's called Midwest Paratalk Radio.
Paratalk Radio. There you
Mhm.
go.
We used to
It's really
do it.
good.
We did it years
It's
and
really
years
good.
ago for like 5 or 6 years, maybe even longer, and it was great. And then life yanked our chains and pulled us in different directions. And I went on second shift for 7 years, so that kind of threw a monkey wrench in my plans.
Oh, that's no fun.
And
I
now
think
we're-
I think Midwest Paratalk actually popped into our chat room earlier.
that was probably my buddy Greg, because I told him I was going to be on here, and he likes to support me. He's a good dude.
That's cool. We're glad that you're back on the air and that you're telling your story and talking about situations like yours, because I've talked to Nawson extensively and Odessa in regards to, and Nancy in regards to experiencers. We all believe and agree that that's where a lot of true disclosure is going to come from.
100%. You know, there isn't a government on the planet that's got control of any of this. It's going to come from us and from who we're going to disclose ultimately, not
Right.
them though.
Yeah.
But we
It's-
are disclosure. I mean, we've been there, we've seen that, we've done that. People are going to start coming and asking us once they realize, hey, this.
We are the disclosure.
Mhm.
That's for sure.
It's still really weird, though, that people cringe when you mention alien abduction. They
Yeah.
automatically chuckle and think, "Oh, that's no, I don't believe that."
until they meet one of us and they
Right.
sit down and talk. I mean, I can't tell you how many
Well, you're
people,
not actually crazy. What?
I can't tell you how many people I've met at conferences over the years that have heard me talk and then come and sit down and they're like, you're just like me.
Mhm.
You're just like the the chick I work with on the line at the factory. You're
Yeah.
and it throws some people off. I think I might scare some people almost because I kind of screw up their. It's easy to think everybody that sees UFOs is crazy, and then when you meet somebody that actually has, and they don't really seem like. Trust me, I thought I was crazy, but one of the things that the therapist told me is that most crazy people don't think they're crazy; they think other people are.
Yeah.
Right. They think they're normal.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm far from normal, but who's to say what normal is? So
Right.
Say what's true is normal. That's not necessarily the case.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I was
We-
just going to say that's kind of one of the things that I find is a commonality with the people that have legitimate experiences, is that when you're talking about the circumstances that you've been exposed to, it's actually just conversational. It's the same as if you're talking about what you were doing yesterday, because it's just a part of your life. It just
Right.
fits in with the way that you talk the rest of the time, instead of being this blown out dramatic situation. And
Right.
that's one of those things that stands out when you're dealing with legitimate experiencers, is they're just very matter of fact. It's just experience.
And then you know what? Still, after 40 years, I still don't know a lot of stuff. I don't remember a lot of stuff. I don't have a lot of answers. I don't have that many more answers after 40 years that I have. I have things that have changed, but within me, I can only speak for my own experiences. I don't dare to ever speak for anyone else's experiences. And I don't judge other people's experiences because they're not mine to judge and it's not my place. But I share my experience with other people. And, if you don't believe what I'm telling you, okay. If I didn't see it, I probably wouldn't either. Some of it.
Yeah.
So that's fine. You can do that. It's okay.
I think a lot of us are not really trying to prove anything to anyone.
Mm-mm.
We're just telling our story because it helps us affirm within ourselves that what we went through is valid.
Right. And we're valid. Our feelings are valid. Our experiences are valid. And we're not alone.
That's for sure.
Right. And you're more than welcome back on our channel anytime, Debra.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I
We're
really
thinking of
appreciate it.
Can't wait to
We're-
read the book.
we're thinking about having a abductee or experiencer roundtable. Maybe we can get another experiencer that is well known on here. And I was thinking Terry Lovelace.
He's a lovely guy. I know
I
Terry.
talked to him the other day, and he said he doesn't do too many podcasts anymore, but he is willing to come on. So maybe we can get us all together with him and talk to him about some of the intricacies of his experience and yours and how they mesh and so on and so forth. Because people need to know this information. They do. Because it's not approached by many channels. It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
And we make it an effort here to dig into it and take a deep dive. So thank you, Debra. I really appreciate the time that you have given us tonight. Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Nos, where can we find you? You got a book, right?
Yes, and
There
what I'm going to
is a
do here
book.
is I'm going to drop a link to a Trello board in the chat here. And if people follow along with the game that I've created for them, they're going to get access to the Google Drive where they can just have the book as a document. So they can use Screen Reader to have text to speech, read the book to them in whatever language, accent that they want. But it's also got access to the evidentiary archive that goes with the book. This is the just launched this yesterday, but this tool, if they follow the instructions through the Trello to copy the Trello board, do the research, they have the evidence available. if they want to actually prove what's necessary and bypass the government's control of disclosure, the truth embargo, this is the method to do that. Because the government
And it's
itself,
fun.
and it's fun. I gamified the process of crowdsourcing disclosure because I'm creative that way. I went to school for game development. But the thing that you're looking at is that the types of things we talk about, the government is still trying to make sure that nobody listens to and nobody believes in. Whenever they're having these UFO hearings and stuff, they're talking about mechanical experiences, right? They're talking about everything that is not biological and everything that is not the human experience itself. They still want people not believing the experiencers. And since they can't responsibly handle what's necessary for disclosure, we're taking that control away from them. So this is the step in that process. Whoever goes through the process that's there, they're going to have the evidence in their hand to be able to establish the truth, to take that power away from the government. And I just wanted to make it a game because
That's what you
they
do.
want to play with us. It's time to play back.
William, where can they find you?
You can find me at my YouTube page, I guess. That is everything I do. Or Sundays, I do a live show on my channel, and it's just a comedy show about Florida man news, and that's about it. And if anything else I'm doing, you can find it over there.
Okay.
That's it.
Nancy, where can we
I have a
find you?
website. Yeah. I have a website, timefordisclosure.com. And I also have a Facebook group that's for experiencers. And it's timefordisclosure.com/we've never been alone. And also /we are the disclosure.
Yes.
Yep.
Nancy is also a moderator on the UFO Man Nation group on Facebook.
Yes.
So
Yes.
check her out there as well. Odessa,
You can find
where
me
can
here.
we find you?
You can find me here. You can find me on Facebook. I'm in the
Sure,
UFO
Tim,
Man
sure.
group.
Yep.
For
She's a
UFO
moderator too.
Yeah.
Yep.
As far as personal content, I don't really have a lot. I'm not like a persona. I'm just me. I work my day job, service student loans, do my jam. That's what I do. So I'm just a normal person, and I'm just here to kind of help facilitate. If you want to find me directly, just go to UFO Man Nation on Facebook and type in a message. I'll see it.
Right. We want to thank everybody who participated in the chat room this evening. We also want to thank everybody who watched online. We want to thank again Debra Jordan Kauble for her graciousness in giving her time up this evening to be here on panel. So thank you very much, Debra.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'd like to invite you to come back next Wednesday
Yes,
for an
please.
interview with Luigi Venditelli. He is a filmmaker and a UFO researcher. He is currently working on a project called Project Gravator, which is concerning a documentary called Lazar, the original whistleblower. They've been working on it for the past 2 years and hope to release it in 2024 later in a couple months. So we're going to get him before it's released. So if you
Wish
want
us
to
luck. We can
come,
get Lazar himself at some point, y'all. Come on. Wish us luck. Wiggle your noses.
we are working on Lazar,
Yeah.
but he's very difficult to get. But
We can do it.
he's under contract right now with the film company that's putting out the documentary. But once we can figure out a way around the contract or his NDA, then
Right.
we can bring him on. But we are working on that, so that's a possibility. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next weekend, or not weekend, Wednesday. Sorry.
Yep. No Saturday show this weekend. think so, but